There may not be anything as magical as Christmas time in Germany. In this, the land that practically invented the Christmas celebration as we know and love it, there is one particular place that, more than any other, is the origin of many favorite holiday traditions, the Erzgebirge, or Ore Mountains, in Germany's state of Saxony. Here in dozens of small workshops, artisans are crafting the magical Christmas decorations invented by their ancestors: candlelit carousels, candle arches, smokers, and nutcrackers. The Erzgebirge is a mountainous region bordering the Czech Republic. Long isolated behind the Iron Curtain, the world can now rediscover this enchanting land, where plentiful accommodations can be found, just a 5-hour drive from Frankfurt and 3 hours from Berlin. The center of the Erzgebirge's Christmas craft industry is the village of Seiffen, symbolized by its distinctive Baroque octagonal church. Stacks of wood behind houses are a common sight here in this village of 3,000, where homes and workshops often occupy the same building. The story of these wonderful crafts is rooted in the region's history. It is a story that begins in the Middle Ages, when silver ore is discovered in these mountains and mining becomes the region's major industry. The 17th and 18th century were the heyday of the mining culture. The miners' distinctive uniforms date from this era, when Saxony's great king, August the Strong, recognized the miners as an important source of his kingdom's wealth. With the riches from the mines, August and his descendants built their capital city of Dresden, a center of art and culture. This mining heritage looms large in the popular imagination of the Erzgebirglers, as they call themselves. Parade associations that dress in the traditional uniforms, such as this one marching down Seiffen's main street, have enjoyed a revival since Germany's unification. Each band wears carefully documented uniforms and tools from their town's history. These white uniforms with blue aprons belong to blowers of cobalt blue glass. But by the 19th century, the mines were played out, and workers searched for new ways to earn a living. Society was also changing. It was the early Victorian age. The Christmas celebration became a family party centered on the children. E.T.A. Hoffmann's story, The Nutcracker and the Mouse King, on which Tchaikovsky's ballet is based, was written during this time. There was a new market for wooden toys and playthings. Among the most popular toys were Noah's Ark sets. Arks came in all shapes and sizes, some with as many as 300 pairs of animals. The artisans of the Erzgebirge used water power and wood, the natural resources at their disposal, to develop a unique method of mass-producing animals for Noah's Arks called Reifendrehen, or ring turning. Here at Seiffen's open-air museum, among a collection of historic cottages, is a water-powered lathe from 1760. Artisan Hans-Günther Flatt demonstrates the Reifendrehen technique. From a cross-section of log, he begins. Spruce, a local wood, is used. The wood is thoroughly saturated. The dampness gives the wood the necessary suppleness needed to shape it. Wood that is too dry will break apart on the lathe. In the Erzgebirge, the Reifendreher is justly famous for producing these mesmerizing ribbons of wood. With the proper tool and an exacting eye, the Reifendreher completes one side of the ring. After the ring is separated and the other side similarly shaped, the ring is sliced.
Einem Ring 50 bis 60 Stück entstehen.
A ring of this size yields 50 to 60 little animals.
Schnitzrohlinge.
After they are shaped, tiny wooden ears and tail will be added, and then they will be painted.
Die Ohren. Und der Schwänzchen wird dann extra.
And so the craftsmen of the Erzgebirge found a new way of life. Soon their toys were exported all over the world, especially to the US and England. They had a natural artistic sensibility that made them famous as they fulfilled the most ardent wishes of generations of children. As the East German regime came to a close, Reifendrehen was nearly a lost art. However, this native Erzgebirge craft has revived as younger craftsmen have taken up the ring turner's tools. Here at Seifen's Christmas market, held every weekend in Advent, village children brave the cold to march as living toys, bringing to life the familiar objects crafted by their families. Seifen's Parade Association is marching too, in their uniforms from 1719. Among the marchers is nutcracker maker Roland Müller, while wife Eva staffs their booth. For the Müllers and everyone else here who sells or makes Christmas decorations, it's Christmas nearly every day of the year. Early spring in the Erzgebirge. The not-so-distant mountains are in the Czech Republic, an area known once upon a time as Bohemia. Here in the countryside surrounding Seiffen, scattered among the farms, are workshops like the Müllers. Even at Easter, they are already preparing for the coming holiday season. In their workshop, Roland and Eva Müller are busy producing some of the 27 different nutcrackers they offer.
Angeborene Seifner.
Is a echte Seifen.
She says her husband is a real Seifner,
Echte Nutcracker.
a real nutcracker.
So, fertig. Ist der Rohling.
While Roland works at the lathe, Eva is busy at her own workbench, carving the faces.
Und da weiß man dann auch abends, was man gemacht hat.
Here she puts the final touches on the Rübezahl, a gentle giant character from a regional fairy tale. During the East German period, Mr. Müller made nutcrackers that were sold through a state-owned company. When unification came, he founded his own company and developed a distinctive nutcracker style using all natural materials.
So, das ist der erste, mit dem es losgegangen ist. Das ist der König. Dann haben wir natürlich immer weiterentwickelt.
It all started with this one. This is the king. We're always improving it. We added the scepter, for example. He's completely natural, no stain or paint. This is walnut and cherry, so that the contrast comes out. He's made of 55 separate pieces of different woods: walnut, ash, alder, ash, and cherry.
He gets his wood from the nearest sawmill, which needs to be of the highest quality.
Bei Naturnussknacker, wenn das mit dem Holz nicht klappt, da kann man nicht mehr viel herstellen draus. Bei bunt geht alles.
With natural nutcrackers, if the wood isn't good, it can't be used. With painted ones, anything goes. But when the wood is clear varnished, then it must be perfect. No knots, no flaws, nothing.
But talk of nutcrackers is not complete without a stop at the Fürstner family workshop, the birthplace of the nutcracker. Volker Fürstner now heads the family business.
Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Kommen Sie ruhig rein.
Ja, danke. Founded in 1786, this is the oldest family-run workshop in the Erzgebirge. 6 generations have created wooden toys and Christmas decorations, and the 7th, now teenagers, are completing apprenticeships in the workshop. Today, 3 generations of the family, Father Werner, Sister Romy, employee Monica, Mother Helga, son Marcel, and Uncle Rudy, all work together crafting not only nutcrackers, but angel and minor candle holders and smokers, all adhering to an old-fashioned style of a century ago. While Volker's mother Helga paints a nutcracker, she thinks a moment. How long has she been doing this?
Lass mal überlegen. 40 Jahre.
40 years. Were you born into a toy maker's family?
Nein, nein, eingeheiratet. Ja,
No, married into one.
eingeheiratet.
Was it hard to learn? Your hand is so steady.
Noch.
Still, she says.
Nee, es war nicht schwer.
No, it wasn't hard. Volker Fürstner, brother Günther, and nephew Marcus are busy at their lathe. What is he making?
Ich drechsel hier die Mützen für die Könige.
He says he's making the hats for the kings.
Der Unterkörper ist aus einem Stück, ja. Das wird dann
Fürstner nutcrackers really crack nuts. The head and body are one piece, he notes, so it won't break in use. The very first Fürstner sold wooden toys at the Dresden Christmas market. Then in 1870, Wilhelm Friedrich Fürstner began crafting the first commercially produced nutcrackers in this very house. His inspiration was a nutcracker book. Not E.T.A. Hoffmann's story, but one by Heinrich Hoffmann called The Nutcracker King and Poor Reinhold. In the story, the sickly Reinhold dreams on Christmas Eve of visiting the land of toys ruled over by King Nutcracker. He wakes on Christmas morning well again and surrounded by the toys in his dream. All the toys in the story were made in the Erzgebirge, with the exception of the Nutcracker. Until, that is, Wilhelm Fürstner designed and began producing them. But nutcrackers are also a folk art form that poke fun at authority. These antique Fürstners embody kings, military officers, and the detested forester who enforced the poaching laws on big estates, says Werner Fürstner.
They were afraid of the king and the forester. They would go into the woods and steal something because they didn't have any money, and the forester would catch them. They were afraid of the forester, so they made him into a nutcracker.
Throughout the 40 years of the German Democratic Republic, the Fürstners made their nutcrackers here in this workshop. However, some of the larger firms were confiscated or nationalized. Christmas crafts became a valuable export product, a source of hard currency. Since unification, most of these family factories have been restored to their former owners. Early Fürstner nutcrackers, and these crafted by Richard Langer, are the most coveted among nutcracker collectors. These early examples are in the Nutcracker Museum in the neighboring village of Neuhausen. The museum is easy to find. It's the building with the 20-foot nutcracker in the parking lot. the Guinness Book record holder as the world's largest functioning wooden nutcracker. The museum houses Uwe Luschner's own collection of 3,500 nutcrackers. He says he likes the different ways in which the nutcracker can be portrayed. Are there still nutcrackers to collect? Oh yes, he says. There were between 15 and 20,000 different nutcrackers made in the Erzgebirge. He may have to travel overseas to find some of them. 80% of all nutcrackers made in the Erzgebirge were exported to the United States. But nutcrackers are only an introduction to the wide variety of toys and Christmas items that have been the region's major industry for the past 150 years. At Seiffen's Toy Museum, a toy maker's home has been faithfully reproduced, where living room, kitchen, and workshop were one and the same. In tiny rooms like this one, extended families carved, assembled, and painted wooden toys for the export market. Often children worked too. And yet, for their own Christmas celebrations, they created objects of breathtaking beauty, skill, and originality that reflected a deep religious feeling. These include the angel and minor candle holders and candlelit carousels, today the most beloved Christmas decorations among the Erzgebirglers themselves.
Zwei der wichtigen Traditionsfiguren im Erzgebirge sind lichtertragende Bergmänner und lichtertragende Engel.
Two of the most important figures in the Erzgebirge are the candle-holding miner and the candle-holding angel. The miner is the older figure. In the 17th century, he could be found on church altars as a candle holder.
Die Engelfigur dazugekommen. Heute sieht man Bergmann und Engel oft als Pärchen in verschiedener Ausstattung.
In the early 19th century, the angel was added. Today, you see the two paired together, with the angel retaining her traditional painted dress. One must also point out that the angels are evidence of the deep piety of the miners.
Engel mit Lichtern in der Hand oder mit einem Lichterbogen wie hier sind sehr oft in den Fenstern aufgestellt.
Today, angels and miners are placed in windows on Christmas Eve to show how many boys and girls are in a family.
The miners had a deep longing for light, brought on by long days underground, and they loved to incorporate candles in their Christmas celebration. Perhaps this explains the advent of candlelit carousels, or pyramids, as they're called in Germany.
Diese Pyramiden haben ihre Anfänge etwa 1800 gehabt.
These pyramids began appearing in homes around 1800, but it took 100 years before pyramids of this size were made for sale.
In die Fertigung gegangen ist. For
the Erzgebirglers, building their own pyramids brought candlelight to the Christmas celebration, and this wonderful property of the pyramid. See how it softly turns and how each level portrays a different episode of the Christmas story.
Today, carousels are made in a wide variety of designs, such as these made by the Müller-Kleinkunst Company. Ringo Müller is the fourth generation to work for the firm.
We are now in the Müller Company, and this is one of the very old companies here in town. Our company was founded more than 101 years ago from my grandfather. His name was Edmund Oswald Müller, and he was the founder of the company.
This catalog from the 1920s shows the elaborate doll furniture once manufactured by the firm. Müller-Kleinkunst creates a signature line of natural wood carousels, candle arches, and music boxes using 35 different types of wood imported from all over the world. These items capitalize on the Erzgebirglers' skill at crafting miniatures. This little angel, just 2 inches high, has 20 separate parts. Just as the firm has moved from doll furniture to Christmas decorations, Mr. Müller says that his firm is constantly updating and revising their products.
We must look to new designs. We make a combination between the tradition, the old tradition, and also a new tradition.
One new design of the past decade is Seiffen's Baroque octagonal church. shown here with the choristers who lead the procession to church on Christmas Eve. The six-pointed star is commonly used to symbolize the Star of Bethlehem, recognizing that Jesus was a descendant of King David. The candle arch, or Schwiebogen, is an old form that has found new life in recent years. The arch is based on the shape of a mine entrance, like this one in the backyard of a village home. On Christmas Eve, miners would have a special religious service at the mine entrance and hang their lanterns on hooks along the arch. The first arches were made 200 years ago of forged iron. Now craftsmen are expanding the use of the arch, turning it into a Christmas tree, for example, and making use of electric lighting. Another time-honored craft, unique to the Erzgebirge, are smokers, pipe-smoking figures that burn incense. As these examples in the Seiffen Toy Museum show, the earliest smokers personified peddlers, postmen, miners, and Turks. At the turn of the 20th century, Turkey was a source of tobacco, and the turbaned Turk a symbol of the exotic East. Helfried Dietl, head of the Association of Erzgebirge Handicrafters and Toy Makers, explains their meaning.
The
smoker is just the opposite of the nutcracker. He's always a friendly man of the people. One can estimate that there are 500 different types of smokers. Every year, customers ask for new ones, and the artisans rush to fulfill these requests.
German unity brought to these craftsmen artistic freedom and exposure to new hobbies and vocations. This has led to an explosion of new inventive smokers, such as this beer brewery. And this stressed-out 21st century white-collar worker. A region rich in history, whose traditions were preserved through the isolation imposed by the former East German government, now faces the challenges of a market-driven economy, pressure from cheap imports that are obvious copies of their work, relatively high labor costs, although the workers here are among the lowest paid in Germany, and opportunities that take young people away from their families. What is the future of the Erzgebirge folk art industry?
As a native Erzgebirgler, one must always be optimistic. I think about the creativity of the people of the Erzgebirge, who have accomplished so much over the centuries. If we can update this tradition, I have no doubt it will survive into the 21st and 22nd centuries.
The village of Seiffen in Germany's Erzgebirge Mountains. A world of wonder awaits, where long ago toys are lovingly crafted, a proud heritage is nurtured, a tradition of hospitality has been reborn, where the spirit of Christmas reigns all year long.